Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, want to commend the service of all of our service members who have served in Afghanistan and the intelligence officers and Afghan personnel who supported them. I want to focus on the last point that Senator Ernst made about a review. Dr. Call and General Mingus, members of the committee, myself included, have proposed a comprehensive, rigorous, and objective audit on the war in its entirety. As last month's hearing, General Milley acknowledged that there have been many lessons to be learned from America's longest war. Secretary Austin further stated any commission or review of the war should be an interagency effort. Do you have any recommendations for an external independent review of the war in Afghanistan? For example, what do you think Congress's role should be? What U.S. agencies, countries, and organizations do you recommend be included?
So we're supportive of Senator Duckworth's proposal for an independent commission on this, strongly supportive of that. We also have efforts underway at the Department of Defense or about to be underway. The Joint Staff has an effort. My organization is working to identify an independent institution that can do an independent review, especially of the time period from February 2020 through the end of the NEO. And we're in conversations with the NSC and the State Department and the intelligence community to make sure whatever we do is aligned with their ongoing lessons learned activities.
General?
Ma'am, I would echo Dr. Call's comments. Fully support after 20 years and all the treasure and resources. We owe our nation some better answers in terms of what we've learned.
With the testimony that's been given earlier in this hearing of an estimate that ISIS-K could launch an attack within 6 to 12 months, that the Taliban, that Al-Qaeda could launch an attack within 1 to 2 years, acknowledging that we are in an unclassified setting, what are some of the broad objectives our adversaries may have within Afghanistan, and what planning is DoD doing in response to those recommendations and objectives?
Yes, so I think the intelligence community would say that that ISIS-K and Al-Qaeda could have the capability to do attacks within that time frame. Whether they do or not is, of course, not something that can be predicted with any degree of certainty. We are deploying ISR over Afghanistan every single day. We also have national technical means, which we can talk more about in the classified setting. We are sharing intelligence with regional partners and with our other partners, the UK and others who are very focused on this problem set. So we will get after this challenge, and we will try to grow our capability to get after it. I will say, I do think the Taliban is highly motivated to go after ISIS-K for the reasons we discussed earlier. They're a mortal enemy. I think Al-Qaeda is much more complicated because the Taliban, especially the Haqqanis, have a relationship with Al-Qaeda. But we have seen signs, and we can talk again more in the classified setting, that the Taliban is wary about Afghanistan being a springboard for Al-Qaeda external attacks, not because the Taliban are good guys, but because they fear international retribution if that were to occur.
Ma'am, and if I could, because
Please.
this has come up several times in terms of the time frames for Al-Qaeda and ISIS-K, those estimates from the intel community, that's based on no U.S. or coalition intervention. When applied, and what we'll talk about in the classified session in terms of our strategy and what we're doing, the goal would be to keep those time horizons where they're at now, if not even further.
Can you give an assessment in this setting what your view is with regard to regional instability and how that may impact both Russia and China?
So I think both Russia and China are nervous, frankly, despite what their propaganda outlets would suggest. Afghanistan is now a problem that's much more on their doorstep than on ours. I think both of them have counterterrorism concerns inside of Afghanistan. I think both Moscow and Beijing are more willing to work with the Taliban than we are. But I think they're concerned. I think Afghanistan's other neighbors, we've already talked about Pakistan, but the Central Asian states, they worry about the counterterrorism challenge. They also worry about the implosion of Afghanistan leading to refugee flows that would spill across their borders.
What resources, trade agreements, military operations, or bilateral relation improvements do you think will be necessary to gain support from regional partners such as Uzbekistan to enable over-the-horizon operations or any other collaborations?
We have some very specific ideas, but on that score, I recommend we talk about that in the closed session. It's very sensitive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Tillis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr.